Hello, good evening, everybody. My name is Jazz, and I am the community manager here at Canadian Gap Year Association. I'm so excited to go live for another Gap Chat for our amazing Gap Year Exploration Month here all February long. So, if you haven't tuned in already around what is happening this month, we are basically going through all of the phases, all of the resources, all the tools, all the community support that you need to lead a truly purposeful and epic and amazing gap year. And that's what we do here at Canadian Gap Year Association. So we are a nonprofit organization that are literally here to support you in making that decision, planning your gap year, and leading it with confidence. So today I'm going to be actually chatting with one of the amazing CanGap ambassadors that we have here, Rina Salzberg, who's coming. He's going to be joining us live from Japan. Funny enough, we're actually both on this side of the world. I'm actually coming at you live from the Himalayas in India at 7:30 in the morning. So maybe it looks like I'm a little bit sleepier than usual. But I'm really excited about this chat. Rina has been up to so many amazing things on her gap year. And today we're going to be really diving into everything to do with what does it look like to actually realistically plan your gap year, and what do you do when things maybe don't go your way? How do you overcome those things? And then also we're going to dive a little bit into Rena's specific journey, because she actually deferred her acceptance to university, and a deferral, or the deferral process, is something that we don't really talk about it, and a lot of students don't know is possible. So I'm gonna leave you on a cliffhanger there and let Rena dive into it when she joins. And I see that she's here, so I'm gonna just let her in. Awesome. She should be joining. Gotta love these leggy connection things. There we
Hi.
go. Hey, Rena, how's it going?
Hi, it's good. How are you?
Good, nice and early over here.
Oh, I bet.
What time is it there?
It's 11 in the morning, so good time of the day, good time of the day.
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
Yeah, for sure.
So, for those who don't know you yet, who haven't watched your amazing intro video on our KangGap Ambassador channel, our playlist on YouTube, why don't you just give a brief introduction to who you are, what you're all about, and maybe just give us a summary about what you've actually been up to on your gap year so far?
Sure. Okay, so my name is Rina. I'm 18 years old and I've lived in Japan all my life. So, yeah. And as Jazz said, I deferred my offer from a university last summer. So, and I'm going to be starting in school in the fall this year. So excited for that. Um, yeah. Should I talk a little bit about what I've been doing?
Yeah,
Or
sure.
yeah?
What
Okay.
have you been up to? Tell us all the things.
Okay. Well, I've been doing a lot of things. Like I've been working, I've been, dancing, um, just doing some of my hobbies and stuff. I've been in dance performances, I've been volunteering, and I have a couple domestic travel plans coming up, so that's pretty exciting.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. I think before we dive into the planning side of your gap year, I'm curious, why did you decide to take a gap year? What was your why for taking a gap year?
Okay. Well, um, this might be like an unconventional reason, but well, actually, maybe it's pretty common, especially in this time of the year. Not this time, like during the pandemic. It was never like, oh, I want to take a gap year, that's why I'm taking it. It was more like, okay, so am I even able to go to university in the fall? Because I knew I was going to go to Canada for university, but I live here, and especially like during 2020, early 2021, things were looking pretty grim. Like international travel for students didn't even seem that possible at that point. And so it was more like, can I even go, right? But as I started to think about like what I might do with an an extra year in Japan, I realized that there are a lot of things that I still wanted to do here. And that includes not just like cultural things, but also because my whole life is here. Like I
Yeah.
felt like I needed a little bit more time to like slowly wrap things up, if that makes sense. And like build a sense of closure in myself and like, be satisfied when I leave.
Yeah.
And uh yeah, so that was kind of my reasoning. And I like how my dad put it for me when I talk about a lot of my like decision making stuff with my dad. And he said, at the end of the day, um, it's whether you want to build your past in Japan or start building your future in Canada. And I thought about that and I realized that I feel like I still needed to finish building my past, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
And it again, it's like it's home, right? And you have
Yeah.
to have that, you want to have that connection to home and you want to, and because you've obviously been in school your whole life, like you haven't really had an intentional opportunity to dive deeper into whether that's cultural aspects or community building outside of your school, your classroom, or whatever experiences that you want to obtain from Japan before you head off to Canada. So I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, the idea of not, of missing out, I guess, of like the real life university experience
Mhm.
is definitely becoming more of a common, like barrier for when like choosing a post-secondary versus a gap year. Cause it's like, who wants to miss all of those pieces that are so important to your community building and really the like your success throughout
Mhm.
like and that can be like 6 years or 8 years or 10 years in university, right? So
Right.
it like to miss out on those in real life experiences is a lot. It's heavy. I can't even imagine having to
Mhm.
do post secondary fully online. It's a lot. So kudos to you. Kudos to you for finding the right reasons to take a break.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thinking about, before we go into like what you've been planning and what it looked like and how things might be like bleh because of COVID and all these things, but realistic, like regardless of if you're on a gap year or not, like plans are not always going to go exactly how
Mhm.
expected, especially during a pandemic. So I'm curious, so what were kind of some of your initial gap year goals and how have those maybe played out or like shifted over time?
Um, my gap year goals. Okay, so my two main like big things for my gap year was to um like go see Japan, like go travel in Japan and stuff. That was one thing. And the other thing was this is very broad, but there were a couple of things that I had like committed to already in Japan. Like I wanted to be in dance performances. I had like a couple of jobs that I've been doing. So I wanted to fully commit to those things. And I knew the travel part was always going to be challenging, but like with COVID, you never know what happens. So I've had a few mishaps along the way in terms of that, but overall, like I'm still hopeful that I will get to do a little bit more like domestic traveling towards the end of my year. And that's the thing with domestic traveling is that you have a little bit more flexibility around that because you're already in the country, right? So I think I think there is like, you know, um, when you're on a gap year, you always want to go big, you want to go travel abroad, you want to go this and that. But I think if you shift your focus to, your more immediate surroundings, I think you might get very like interesting experiences there as well. So it's something to think about.
Absolutely. I think
Yeah.
students forget, like Canadian students forget how amazing Canada is. It's so diverse, it's so beautiful. And I like these comments, go big or GoPro. um, yeah, and we forget to really experience our own country. So I'm very envious of you for like really taking intentional time to do that because even as a Canadian who lives abroad, like I find I really struggle in thinking like, did I not spend enough time really exploring my own country? And like I
Hmm.
will, but I think like there's now more than ever, there's a great opportunity to do that before going into post-secondary. And that could even be like, it doesn't need to just be weekend trips or, it could be whatever you want it to be. It could be, working in Whistler as a ski instructor and like moving
Yeah.
across the country or like going to like study on a sailboat on the East Coast. Like there's so many amazing opportunities. There's lots of opportunities, obviously, to get involved with Indigenous communities and learning more about how to be a better ally and and going into reconciliation and or maybe even studying brushing up on your French in Quebec. So that's Jasmine throwing gap year ideas out into the
Yeah.
universe for everyone listening. Um, so okay, so because things have been a little bit all over the place. And like I know that it hasn't been horrible. Obviously, you've been doing so many amazing things. You were interning, you've been working, you're dancing, you're traveling. So I'm wondering like, and I know that your things have kind of shifted for you in the last couple of months as well. So I'm curious, like when you are planning what's next in your gap year, how do you
Mhm.
approach that? And is there like a way that you think is best for planning so that you always have like I don't know, maybe like a backup plan, or there's a way to approach it so that you're not
Mm.
planning long term. And then I'm also curious if there's like any tools or resources that you do use when you're planning. So what does that process
Okay.
look like?
Okay. Well, first of all, I, especially for like the second half of my gap year, I knew that I already wanted to participate in a few different commitments. Like mainly, there is a dance performance in June that I really want to be in, and that effectively means that for like a couple months prior to that, I'll be going to rehearsals. So I knew I had to work around that. So when I'm planning like what I want to do, I I tend to start out with like a very, very loose outline of what I might want to like be doing generally in that time frame for like the next like 4 to 6 months, because that's the time frame that just works for my schedule personally. I know that can look different for, other people with different kinds of commitments. So that's something to think about, like looking at your own schedule, but that's just something that's worked for me. And um like usually my kind of commitments, like they they usually go as planned. Like I haven't personally had any experiences with like a dance performance falling through or anything due to COVID. So that's been, fortunate. But all the other little things, like when I want to, like how much I want to go to work, like I still have like online I have an online calculus course that I've been working on. Like I have different like little this and that. Like how much time I allocate to those things, I look at like a weekly or monthly basis, like in smaller chunks, because
Mhm.
I know those kinds of things are definitely affected by like, how many plans I get to make with my friends or something, because so that's been planning. And some resources and tools. I am very big on jotting down all my thoughts onto paper, because I tend to find that my thoughts get really jumbled up in my head if I, don't have an outlet. And as I write things down, I start to like realize what I'm actually thinking. So, like, not even like actual journaling, but just like, brainstorming, brain dumping is one thing that
Yeah,
I
I like
do. Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so that's one, I guess, resource or tool you could say. And, you know, not to sound too like, but I have found that, doing gap year talks with you and Michelle have really helped to because, you guys kind of know what you're doing. So that has really helped me like try and identify like what really is important to me, because you guys are really good at like guiding me through like that kind of process, because you're good at that. So
Well, thank
yeah.
you. I'm so glad that it's so helpful. I think there's nothing more exciting for me than like chatting with y'all about like what's next and like what
Yeah.
are our goals? What are we working towards? And I find sometimes I'm like, oh, I probably sound like such a mom, like constantly being like, what is your why? What are your goals? But when the clearer we are on those, like that might be grueling work sometimes, but the clearer we
Yeah.
get around those pieces, the more in alignment, your gap year ends up being. And then life and adulthood and all the other things that follow. So that's really beautiful. I'm glad
Exactly.
to hear that. And
Yeah.
I'm taking from you that like planning in like these smaller chunks is also really helpful. So, and I've heard this
Yeah.
kind of becoming a more of a common trend for gap year students because I'm sure a lot more gap year students pre-pandemic were doing a lot more like structured programs
Yeah.
because that was kind of more of the way to go. And also I think that the movement of more like independence and like solo travel and like kind of taking the lead on your own life has also really come into play, I think, over the last couple of years
Hmm.
with your Gen Z generation, which is so exciting because it provides this opportunity to really lead a year that makes the most sense to you. So it can be as structured as you need it to be, or it can be as loose as you need it to be.
Yeah.
But having, kind of breaking things up in like 3 month, 2 month, 1 month chunks really helps kind of decide what comes next and
Hmm.
how to take action. So that's beautiful. And if anyone's curious, like Rena is actually part of our Gap Year Game Plan program. So through our game plan program, that is how she meets up with like Michelle and I every month to chat through like Gap Year plans and goals. And then we also every month have multiple events happening for our Gap Year students. And we also work through our game plan kind of framework of working, basically getting certified in all of the amazing life skills you learn on your gap year that you wouldn't necessarily kind of have like a credible, like someone like backing you up with it. So like for example, this month we're focusing on project management. So at the end of the month, the goal is that everyone in the game plan has worked towards earning their project management digital badge, which is basically a micro certification they can put on their LinkedIn profile or their resume. And what's included in that is actually designing, planning, and then implementing a small project. Or it could be small, it could be massive, it could be whatever you want it to be. And Rena's actually been doing a lot of content creation throughout her gap year. So as one of our CanGap ambassadors, she's sharing all the like intimate, vulnerable details of her gap year and all the things going on our YouTube. So I'll be sure to link that in the comments below this video. But something that I love about Rena's journey is that she took a deferral. So she deferred her acceptance to university. And I think that this is one of the biggest opportunities that students don't realize is an option or even know what it is. So, Rena, can you just share a little bit about what a deferral is and how it works?
Yeah, okay. So I first found out about like what a deferral was because like someone from my school a year above me apparently took a deferral and I was like, "Wait, what is that?" Because nobody ever tells you that that's an option. But basically a deferral is something that you can request after you have accepted your offer to a program in university or I think in college as well. And it allows you to postpone your offer of admission either for a semester or up to a whole year. So for me, that's what I did. I deferred my offer from last year to this fall. And I'm pretty sure this is applicable for, a lot of colleges and universities, but um, what you do is you get access to this like deferral request form probably like late spring to early summerish, and basically they just ask you like why you want the deferral, and they're pretty generous about it, especially considering like the uncertainty of the pandemic. Like I think if you reason it fairly well, there's a pretty low chance that you won't get it. I know that everybody who that I know who've requested deferrals, I think they got it. So you have a pretty good chance. And I think if you're interested, you should definitely do your own research. But from what I've seen from last year, um, universities have waived any kind of fee around deferrals because of the pandemic. Or
Mm.
yeah, so you don't have to pay anything extra to for them to hold your place for the extra year. So it's definitely an option to consider. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I should note that not all Canadian universities offer a deferral,
Hmm.
but you do your own research. And I think this is really a cool. I don't know if you mentioned this, Rena, or someone else, but the idea of like if you know what you want to do for post secondary, or or maybe you're going into more of like a broader or general program for first year to kind of decide on your major, and you still want to have the experience of like applying for post secondary with your friends while you're currently in high school, this is a great opportunity to do that. So you can still go have that experience with your community. You can still have have your acceptance to your school of choice, your program of choice, and then still be able to enjoy an amazing gap year. But
Exactly.
be very mindful about just checking out which schools do offer it and which don't, because not all of them do. But great point. I didn't realize that that universities were waiving the fee. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And like as they should.
As I should, exactly.
That's amazing. And so, as you're still it's only February, so there's still a lot of gap year left, and sometimes it feels
Hmm.
like it's going so fast or so slow.
I
But,
know.
up until now, how would you say that this year has maybe better prepared you for uni in the fall?
Okay, so this has been a very recent revelation. Um, I have learned kind of like my limits when it comes to like my social limit, my how hard I can work myself before I, completely just right. So
Mm.
um, I've learned the importance, of course, everybody talks about the importance of saying yes to every opportunity that comes your way, and that was to an extent, I still believe that. I think it's really important to put yourself out there, do things that you might not usually do. But I've also learned the importance of no. When you know that you have a full plate, you just can't add any more to it at some point, right? So that's something that I've learned. And academically for me, I haven't done a lot of studying during my gap year, so I'm kind of nervous for that in the fall, but it has given me the time to do a calculus course that I didn't get to do in high school, and that calculus course is going to allow me to have an option to pursue different programs in university that I wouldn't have had the option to, and so I'm very grateful that I have that extra time to uh, broaden my selection next year.
That's lovely. And I think everything you said is also so powerful because knowing our burnout limits and how to take care of ourselves, I think, is probably the most important thing we need to learn before going into anything. It's so
Mm-hmm.
important to learn how to take care of ourselves and know what we need for self care when things are stressful or overwhelming. Um, I see there's some really cute comments coming in here. Enjoy it. Life is a process, and it's going to help you to find your way to who you are as a person and also as a human being. So cute.
Oh,
And
that's lovely.
I think that's very much in alignment with like what a gap year is really all about. I think we think so external about gap years often. Like these are all the things I'm going to do, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to do this. But we forget that the internal aspect is so, so important,
Yeah.
and going to happen anyways. Because I mean, I'm sure you've also found that a gap year is also quite like independent, and you have to be quite courageous and ambitious and ready to like go after these all the things you want to do to actually make them happen and be accountable. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Well, before we wind down and sign off, tell us what is next for your gap year. So, what
Mm,
are you planning, I guess, over the rest of Feb and March? Maybe what does that look like?
sure. Well, um, I I was, planning the rest of my gap year 2022, and I have decided that because I know there's dance performance in June that I want to participate in. And so, April and May, I'm pretty tied down to my local area. I wanted to allocate March as kind of like my travel month. So I have yet to book anything, but I'm going to go on a solo travel trip at some point, and I know I'm also going to go on a trip with a friend, so that's pretty exciting. Um, what else?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. And then, by the time my dance performance ends, like in the middle of June, I'll have like another month, a couple months to, wind things down. Go on there's one other like major trip that I really want to go on. And other than that, just like spend time with my family before I go to university in probably like August-ish. So yeah, lots coming up.
Amazing. And I'm assuming we can expect to see little clips of it from your ambassador video.
Maybe, maybe.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, Rena. It is always lovely talking to you and hearing what you're up to and
Thank
sharing
you.
all this goodness. Thank you. So I will wind us down by just sharing, well, one, I will have a link to Rena's video in the description so you can learn more about what she's been up to. And you can also check out all of our other CanGap ambassadors who are either current ambassadors or sorry, current Gap Year students or alum. So, and they're all, oh my gosh, they've all done something so different on their gap year, but it's so beautiful because it's just amazing all the possibilities. And I think if you're feeling like I don't know if a gap year is right for me, that's a great place to see like what is possible, what you could do, what is in alignment with what you're looking to do. So you can check those out. And then I also just want to open an invitation for anyone who is either if you're still not sure if you're taking a gap year or if you're like, yes, I want to do this, but I have no idea how to start planning. I'm running a workshop this Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern called No Fear Gap Year. And it's all about how do we plan for our gap year when there are fears and barriers and craziness in the way that we need to overcome. So in that workshop, we're going to talk about how do we get clear on our why? How do we get clear on a goal? And then what do we need to do to take action towards it? So kind of building out a mini plan in 1 hour. So a really fun, short and sweet and community centric exercise that you can totally do on like for other things outside of the workshop. And I'll also be actually giving you access to immediate tools and resources you can use to start planning. So join me there. Again, I'll have the link in the description. But if you're like so excited and you're like, I need to go there and register right now, Jasmine, go to cangap.ca/no fear gap year. And in the meantime, Rena, thank you again. You are
No
amazing.
problem. Thank you.
Awesome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you at our next Gap Chat. Have a lovely evening.
Bye.
Bye, Rena. Chat with you soon.
Bye. Yeah, bye.